Summary of letter from Birmingham Jail by Martin Luther King, Jr. The letter from Birmingham Jail was written by Martin Luther King, Jr. as a reaction to criticism of the nonviolent protests that took place in Birmingham, Alabama in April 1963. In the letter, King replies to a statement by 8 white clergymen that was printed in a local newspaper. In the statement, the white clergymen called the protests unwise and untimely and said that the outsiders who were leading them were to blame. In the beginning of his message, he calls the pastors people of genuine goodwill and says that he understands how serious their concerns are. This sets the tone for a reasonable conversation. He then replies to the claim that he is an outsider by telling his critics that, as the head of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, he was called to Birmingham to help African Americans fight for their civil rights. He also says that he is in Birmingham because there is injustice here and that he must help, just like the Apostle Paul and other early Christians. King also responds to critics who say that segregation laws should be fought in the courts and not on the streets. He says that only through direct action can they force the white majority to talk about racism and have a real conversation. Even though the protesters are breaking the law, which is why King has to write his letter from the Birmingham City Jail, those laws are wrong and unfair, so civil disobedience is a patriotic reaction. King uses his letter to do more than just answer the clergyman's comments. He also uses it to make his own decisions. He talks about how upset he is with white moderates, who he thinks are worse for the cause of racial equality than the Ku Klux Klan. He doesn't like how the moderates say they back the goal but don't want anything to do with direct action. He would rather be thought of as a radical for the cause of justice than do nothing and let these wrongs keep happening, like the white moderates in the South have done. King then says that the leaders of the white church are also wrong because they support the status quo. He expected more from the church, which was once a place that changed the mores of society. Now, though, the church has changed so much from its early Christian roots that it has become an irrelevant social club instead of a source of inspiration. Even though King is worried about the lack of support for the cause of racial equality and desegregation, he ends his letter on a positive note, saying that he believes African Americans will get the freedom and equality they are fighting for.
About the author. Martin Luther King Jr. was born in 1929 in Atlanta, Georgia. His mother, an organist and part of the church choir, and his father, the Reverend Martin Luther King Sr., raised him. His father had a big impact on his life and helped him decide to focus on Christianity and equal rights for all races. As a kid, King also felt the pain of segregation when he and a white friend started going to separate schools in Atlanta and were no longer allowed to play together. At age 19, King got a degree in sociology from Morehouse College. He then went on to Crozer Theological Seminary. In 1954, he became a minister in Montgomery, Alabama. In 1955, he got a PhD in theology from Boston University. During this time, King also joined the civil rights movement. He led the Montgomery bus strike in 1955 and the March on Washington in 1963, where he gave his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. On April 4, 1968, King was killed in a Memphis, Tennessee, hotel room. He was in the city to lead a protest, and a bomb threat on his plane forced him to stay an extra night. King was killed that evening by James Earl Ray.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.